Well, Joe, I see that I've got a quorum here, so we'll probably just get going. Good evening. I'd like to welcome you to the May 28th meeting of the Alcohol License Review Committee. As you know, this is a virtual meeting. Our operating procedures have not changed, but certainly the process by which people appear and the way that the committee will conduct its business has changed a bit. So in a minute, I'll have Joe Schraven, one of our City of Madison tech wizards, talk to you just a bit about what the process will be for the meeting. Just a couple of administrative things at the beginning. We are governed by Robert's Rules of Order, and included in that package of rules and regulations are aspects of what and how we introduce speakers to the meeting. The committee has a longstanding process of asking people to keep their initial comments to 3 minutes. So when you get recognized and you introduce yourself, I'll ask you to make a brief statement about your particular license and issues that may have brought you to the meeting. Try to keep that to 3 minutes. If you run over, we'll remind you, and then just pause for a minute, and the committee will make a decision if they want you to talk further or not, and then we can continue to listen to your comments. And we don't want to have anyone getting into a debate with committee members, so they'll ask you a question, you can answer it, and then just pause and wait for another question. And we'll give you a chance at the end to kind of summarize your comments if you didn't get everything included. So please try to keep your comments, at least initially, to 3 minutes. So with that, I'm going to ask Jim Verbeek, the Deputy City Clerk, to call the roll for the meeting. Jim?
All right, Carter.
Present.
Carter, present. Fletcher.
Present.
Fletcher, present. Donnelly.
Present.
Donnelly, present. Skidmore.
Here.
Skidmore, present. Revere.
Here.
Revere here. Westra.
Here.
Westra here. Cano Espina.
Present.
Grady.
Here.
Grady here. Landgraf.
Present.
Landgraf here. Chair, we have quorum.
Okay. So, Joe, I've managed to get myself into full screen here, and I can only see the participants. What have I done wrong?
You can only see the...
I can just see the list of the names. Oh, there you are. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Gotta get myself set up here. Okay, what I'd like to now do is have Joe Schraven from the City of Madison IT department just walk you through some of the rules that are unique to this virtual meeting. So, Joe?
Thank you. Welcome to our virtual meeting. We are going to go over a few basic items before beginning. If you lose connection at any point during the meeting, you can reconnect by clicking the link or calling the number in your original email. Members, if you are able, please activate your video and keep it on for the duration of the meeting. Staff, if you are able, please activate your video when you are speaking. The chair, clerk, and tech facilitator are responsible for muting and unmuting committee members. Use the raise hand feature when you'd like to be recognized to speak, ask questions, or request a roll call vote. During any roll call, all panelists will be unmuted briefly. Staff, click raise hand when you are asked a question. Lowering your hand will take you out of the queue. Members of the public who have registered to speak. The name you entered in Zoom must match the name you entered in registration. You will remain muted until called upon. The clerk will tell you when your time is up. After speaking, a member of the body may ask you a question. If you need to share documentation with the board, please send it to the email listed on today's agenda. Mr. Chair, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Verbeek, do we have anyone registered for public comment?
We do not.
We do not. Okay. As a standard process of the committee, at the beginning of each meeting, we ask the members to identify if they have any potential conflicts or relationships with any of the applicants that are appearing on the agenda. We identify those up front so that if those relationships or conversations would in any way limit the members' ability to actively participate, they may recuse themselves from that particular discussion. And rather than have that come as a surprise, we identify that in the beginning. So I'll ask all members of the voting members of the LRC right now, if any of you have any disclosures or recusals that you need to alert the committee to. And I see none. So then that takes us to our agenda. First item is a separated liquor license for Frameshift Arts Cafe. Do we have someone who has registered to speak on this item?
Somebody has registered, but I don't see them in the list of attendees. Although Ashlee Miller is part of Frameshift Cafe. As I mentioned, she's a manager. She's not a member of the LLC or the liquor beer agent. I don't know if she's with one of the members of the LLC, so we might be beneficial to allow her to talk and see if she knows what's up.
Okay, Ashlee, were you listening to that?
This is Jacob Dehaven. I'm
Okay.
using my wife's computer, and so I can't figure out how to not have Ashlee Miller on the Zoom. Yep. So this is Jake Dehaven, a managing member of the LLC.
Okay, good evening, Jake. And I see your name popping up now, so you've changed from Ashlee to Jake officially.
Yep. Perfect. Thank you.
So why don't you, or Mr. Verbeek, why don't you identify for the committee why Frameshift is on our separated agenda?
Sure. So Frameshift did their renewal form just fine. There was no issues with it. Initially, we thought maybe there was a capacity issue, but they had gone through a change of premise, I think in October. And what they recorded on their renewal form was what was approved with that change of premise. So that is perfectly okay. The reason that they were separated is because they initially applied for their alcohol license, I think with 49% alcohol, 49% food, 2% other. And then with this renewal form, they're reporting above 50% alcohol for their revenue ratios. And it's our standing practice to separate any license that does that for the committee to review and ask them if their business plan has changed in any way from what was approved by the committee.
Okay, and Jake, you understand the ramifications of being below 50%?
I don't know if I fully do. To be perfectly honest, I know that that's what we applied for, but after seeing the first year's sales, we, as a theater, we really weren't getting much traffic for dinner service. And so we were trying to do an elevated plate theater, kind of dinner theater concept, and it really just never panned out financially for us to staff the proper talent, as well as just maintain the prep staff and the food loss. And so, to be honest, I'm not sure if I do fully understand the ramifications of changing that percentage.
Okay, why don't I just have Mr. Verbeek talk to you about that, and then
Sure.
can hopefully help our discussion here.
Sure.
Yeah, so if you're operating at 50% or lower of alcohol, you could be considered a restaurant.
Okay.
If you have at least 50% food. Once you sort of cross that threshold and you're above the 50% alcohol, you're then considered a tavern premise,
Okay.
and then you would not be able to have unaccompanied minors in your
Got
premise.
it.
And we would then change your alcohol license. Right now, it says premise and then describes your premise. It would then have tavern premise and then describe your premise. So there's a
Sure.
little change there, but what it means is a little bit larger than that.
Right. No, that's understandable, and we do practice that currently with our security plan. So we ID and we don't allow minors into the facility without a parent, just because we don't. That's the way that our security strategy lays out, and I know that. So I might be a little bit confused, just because. Around the same time, say last August or October, we had our occupancy changed to a theater with an ancillary use as a restaurant. Because what we opened the business as the dinner theater concept, and what we found with all the competition of dinner facilities around, we just weren't getting many people that showed up and wanted to have a plate or a full dinner at the performance space. They were more coming after dinner, and then just coming and maybe would like some smaller foods. And so as we were finding, just competing with chef talent around the city, and we didn't think financially we could really go as far with the food as we originally thought.
Okay. Well, thanks for that explanation of how your business is kind of moving along to deal with the clients. I've got at least one question for you from Mr. Donnelly.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Dehaven, are you still confused at all, or?
No, that makes sense.
Okay. So first, not a question, but information for my fellow committee members, in case somebody was wondering this. There is no condition on this license with any requirement about meeting the conditions of a restaurant. So there's no violation there. Mr. Dehaven, are you continuing to have entertainment end by 10:30 p.m. Sunday through Wednesday and 11 Thursday through Saturday?
My understanding was 11:30, but I'm going to double check with Ashlee on that Thursday through Saturday. But we do shut the amplification down at 11. I'm going to have to double check with Ashlee on that, because she actually set up the hours and the guidelines. But that sounds correct.
If you have any confusion, check with the license posted on your wall, which definitely has them on it. Okay, I don't have any further questions. Mr. Chair, since there isn't anybody in the queue, would a motion be in order?
I do have a quick question for the licensee.
Yes.
Mr. Burke?
Hey, Jake, I've noticed that on your registration for this, you wrote in the name, the Winnebago, now operating as the Burr Oaks LLC. Is Frameshift Arts Cafe still operating that premise? Or is
So Frameshift Arts Cafe is kind of the umbrella LLC that we purchased the building from, and we started the business concept under the moniker of the Winnebago as basically a where nod and just the street that we were on. And we actually got some feedback that was, it was kind of negative and hurtful to some people of that particular tribe. And so we have worked pretty tirelessly the last 3 months to try and figure out all the steps needed to change the name and all the marketing and certain shows that we had on the line. We had to switch over contracts. And so now we're finally got everything in place to just change the DBA to a name that would not harm anybody.
Okay, that sounds good.
Okay.
Shall I?
Hey, Mr. Donnelly?
Yeah, I move to grant items 1A and 1B.
And Mr. Grady seconds that motion. And Mr. Kano Espino?
I wanted to second, but also wanted to say thank you to do that change. That is very nice and great to see a business taking that step. Thank
I
you.
appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay, I have no one else in the queue. So I will record all of you as affirmative unless someone raises their hand, which no one has. And I should just mention to those of you that are viewing, since you can't see the screen with all of the committee members on, as a standard practice, we will record all of the votes of the committee as being unanimous unless any of the committee members raises their hand, at which time we'll then do a roll call vote. And I'll mention that each time we take a vote, just so folks that are watching can keep track of who's voting for what. Okay, that takes us then to items 2A and 2B. Separated liquor licenses for and entertainment license for Camp Tripolandi. Do we have anyone registered?
We do. David Buss, and he is here.
Okay. Good evening, David.
Good evening.
I'm going to ask Mr. Verbeek to tell you why your licenses were separated and why you're here talking to us, and then you'll be able to respond and explain to the committee what's up with regard to what Mr. Verbeek discusses. So, Jim?
Sure. So very similar to the last one, they were granted their alcohol license with I believe it was 39% alcohol, 60% food, 1% other. According to the renewal form, they're now above 50%. And I also had noticed on the renewal form that the DBA was different. It was an old DBA. They had changed the DBA last year to Camp Tripolindi, and I did have some conversations with members of the LLC today, and they'd indicated that it's actually a different DBA, but they'll be filing a change of DBA form, and they should get that in relatively soon if they have not done so already. So according to the renewal form, they reported 55% alcohol, 43% food, 2% other. So it's not drastically over 50%, but it is crossing that threshold.
Okay. And if you were, Mr. Buss, if you were listening to the previous discussion, you are aware of the ramifications of the 50% test, so to speak?
Yes.
Okay. Do you want to explain to the committee, if you're comfortable staying at the percentages you're at, or if you've got some changes that you see coming down the pike?
Yeah, so no changes in business strategy or change of concept or anything like that as the business has grown for the hotel. So the license covers both Camp Tripolindi, the rooftop bar and restaurant, as well as Poindexter Cafe, which is on the first floor in the lobby of the hotel. As we've seen business for our food and beverage departments grow, it has grown more on the alcohol side, and we haven't seen the expected revenues coming from the cafe, which are 99.9% food. So that's where the shift has come slightly. And when we looked at the 2019 revenue numbers, that's where we saw the percentages fall into place. As we are working to grow the revenues in the cafe, I would see that percentage come closer to the 50% mark again.
Okay, thank you. Questions for Mr. Buss? Captain Donahue.
I'm sorry, I was trying to peek through the paperwork. Can you tell me what the hours of the rooftop bar is?
Yes, Monday through Thursday from 4 p.m. to 11 p.m. And then Fridays from 3 until bar time, and Saturdays from 11 until bar time, and Sunday noon until 11 p.m.
And then what about you said that at the cafe, what are the hours of the cafe?
6:30 a.m. to 4 p.m.
Okay.
daily.
Okay. I don't have any other questions.
Okay, thank you, Captain Donahue. Any other questions from the committee and or discussion on the license? Mr. Donnelly.
I move to grant items 2A and 2B.
Okay, and Mr. Grady seconds that. So items 2A and 2B.
Grady is just yucking it up tonight.
I don't see anyone else in the queue, so I will record everyone as having voted in the affirmative on 2A and 2B. So thank you, Mr. Buss. You have a good evening. That takes us then to item number 3, which is a separated liquor license for American Multi-Cinema Inc. doing business as AMC. Do we have a registrant?
Hello? We do. Oops, sorry. All right, we have 2. We have Bridget Holton. She's with AMC, and then Lucas Rowe, who I believe is legal counsel.
Okay. Good evening to Bridget and Lucas. Can you hear us okay?
Yes.
Okay. I'm going to ask Mr. Verbeek to identify why your license was put on our separation agenda, and then you'll have an opportunity to talk to the committee about that. Mr. Verbeek?
Yeah, so this is one of the ones we separated. There was an issue with the renewal form. They've since corrected it since last week, and we have no further issues. The state seller's permit number they used was the Sundance one, which is the entity that occupied that building just prior to them getting their license last year, or the year before that. And then there was a corporate member change, which they have since filed a change of officer, so they're completely good with us.
Okay. I have a question for you from Mr. Fletcher.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Just a question for the applicant. I know the city clerk's office probably tried to reach out, Jim, once or twice, probably regarding this. Did you catch the original email, which probably, Jim, would have been sent, back in April, if I'm going back by the times that you went with last night?
Are you referring to the letter that was sent?
I think that,
Go ahead, Mr. Fletcher.
no, I was going to kind of ask Jim to outline the correspondence that his office sent.
Oh, okay.
So Thomas was our liaison from our office for this license. He did send letters. So when the licensee is referring to letters, that is how Thomas was communicating with his establishments.
Was it just missed then, Bridget?
The letter itself was sent to the theater, and all of our theaters are closed. So we did not get the correspondence until Jackie, the assistant who works for me, sent in the renewal forms, but then followed up and said, hey, I understand we have submitted the renewal application, but we do not know what the renewal fees are. And it was at that time that it was brought to our attention, which was early last week. So we never got the letters.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Alder Carter?
Yes, so Bridget, are you telling me that nobody has picked up any mail since March that was sent to the theater? Is that what you're saying?
I can't speak to actually what all the operators are doing, but all the theaters are closed and they only rarely visit as needed. Let's say if there's an order or delivery or something of that sort. So I can't really say that, I can't address why the letters weren't forwarded to us from the theater. But I just did recognize the fact that it was sent to the theater and it was not forwarded to us. Under normal circumstances, we would have received it, I believe.
For the committee, it looks like we had sent letters about the audit catching the issues on April 24th and then again on May 8th.
Alder Carter, did you have any additional questions?
I'm fine. I just think it's strange, but that's okay.
Okay, Mr. Fletcher?
I was just going to move to grant, but I think Fernando has his. Oh, okay. Yeah, I'll motion to grant item 3.
Okay, and Mr. Kano Espina seconds that. So we have a motion and a second to approve item 3. Further discussion? Seeing none, I'll record all of you in the affirmative for passage of item 3. Okay, thank you, Bridget.
Thank you.
Takes us to item 4, separated liquor license for the Farm Tavern. I believe that is Assistant City Attorney Zilve.
No, that's one of.
Oh,
that's one of ours.
One of you? Okay, I'm
That's
sorry.
the one. All right. We do have a registration, but I don't see them actually here. Justin Egger had registered. I did exchange emails with someone from the Farm Tavern earlier this week. I think it was yesterday. It was one of the LLC members, Becky Calvert. I can just go through the email, and she said that they had filled it out. They had took over for, let's see. She said she's the VP, Secretary, and Treasurer of the corporation. When filling it out, they made the assumption that a small smoking area outside was an outdoor seating area, because the issues that we had with this where the capacities were different, the premise was different, and the corporate members were different. And so they also took the capacity off what the fire sign said at the place and not what was approved by the committee, which is 99. And I'll have to look up what they wrote on the renewal form. But they said
16.
60.
Well, sorry, I'm looking at you. You mean just item 14, the indoor capacity they listed was what, 160 or something like that?
Let's see.
Mr. Fletcher, were you asking that question of Mr. Verbeek?
Yeah, I think I was just responding to Mr. Verbeek's point. I do have I guess a question for Mr. Verbeek when he's done with his initial remarks. So.
Yeah, so it looks like they had 160 on the renewal form, which is a bit over what was listed, what they were approved from the ALRC. And they also had another person on the that they had listed as a member of the LLC that's not on there. But they said that when I got your other letters about the change of premise, officers and capacity, that there was no due date. So she was uncertain that she had to reply and get this stuff done in a reasonable amount, in a much more urgent manner of time than she did. And that's pretty much it. She said she is going to work on getting us a change of officers to correct their LLCs. There was one additional issue I had with this license that I did bring up to the member of the LLC, and that's on the renewal form. They indicated that they have a DJ. However, this establishment does not have an entertainment license. They had applied for an entertainment license back in 2018. However, they did not include a security plan. And after months of prodding them for it, they did not provide a security plan. So the application was considered void since it was incomplete. And there was no follow-up beyond that. And so my question was going to be if they're still offering DJs, and if they are, they need to get an entertainment license to continue that.
Okay. Mr. Fletcher, did you have any?
Yeah, I did, Mr. Chair. Are there any registrants, or are we expecting anyone for items 5, 6, or 7?
I do see.
Just looking at the list. Yeah.
I do see someone who registered for item 5. I unfortunately don't see anyone register for 6 or 7 yet.
I know, Jim, you were diligent last night about trying to get a hold of people very graciously. I think, is that something that's a possibility here if we just table this?
Maybe. I did send emails to everyone who I had not already heard from, who indicated that they would be there. Yeah, the person who is registered, it looks for this item, as I said, it was a Justin Egger. He's not the liquor beer agent, and he's not one of the 2 people listed on the renewal form as a member of the LLC. So he indicated he is representing the Farm Tavern. So I'm not sure if it's in a legal counsel capacity or what. But as I said, there's nobody who is an attendee right now to the Zoom meeting or is called in. So nobody's here for them right now. And I did send emails, as I said, I sent emails to everyone, at least all the liquor beer agents, any email we had on file for them to remind them that they should have gotten a letter. And if they didn't get a letter, they're supposed to appear today for the separation.
Okay. Thanks, Jim. I know Mr. Donnelly and Mr. Keno Spina have their hands up. So,
Okay, Mr. Keno Spina?
I wanted to ask that person who is in the line, even though it's not in the list of like if he's an attorney, if he has information, kind of like what we did with the previous person.
They did
But
register.
I'm okay.
They register, but they're not actually called in or anything like that. So they're not here for us to ask them. But
Oh, they're not in. Oh, so they're registered, but they said that they were representing, but they're not in that. They're not here. Okay, I might misunderstood. Sorry.
Mr. Verbeek, I'm not sure if you're looking at the list. I am, but I do have a phone number. I don't. It's probably the same phone number you have. Because we have the redacted list and then the full list.
I guess I'm not following you.
Okay, I'll send you his phone number via email.
Okay, so we got in touch, or tried to get in touch with number 4. There was somebody who indicated that they would be here, but they're not, and we don't. That's Justin Egger. We don't know who they are, so we can't ask them. Is there Mr. Donnelly? I think, and Miss Westra. So Mr. Donnelly first, and then Miss Westra.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have a question for Mr. Verbeek, but also if they know Captain Donahue or Assistant City Attorney Zilliby. Do we have any indication whether they were using the smoking area outside as part of their licensed premises, even though it isn't? If they were having people at the capacity that they thought was their capacity rather than the true capacity, and or if they were having a DJ in violation of their lack of entertainment license?
I don't have any information as to those questions.
Neither do I.
I'm not sure either, but I can take a quick check of calls for service and see if I see anything.
I don't have any follow-up questions for that. I'd love the answer when it's available. Thank you.
Ms. Westra?
I was just going to move that we place this on the table.
Second.
And come back to this, since that was the process that we did yesterday. Just give people a little bit more time to try to connect up.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to place this on the table. Seeing no one else in the queue, I'll record everyone is being in the affirmative. So item 4 is on the table.
Who was the second on that?
I was.
Okay.
That then takes us to item 5, separated liquor license for Forge Kitchen. And I believe you indicated we have someone in the queue for Forge Kitchen.
We do. It is
Doug Hamaker here from Forge.
Okay. I'm sorry, I didn't get the name of who's.
Doug Hamaker, one of the members of the LLC.
Okay, Doug. Well, good evening. I'm going to ask Mr. Verbeek to identify why your license was separated, and then you'll have an opportunity to chat with the committee about those issues. Mr. Verbeek?
So this is one where it was just one question was a checkbox missed regarding reporting profits or loss on taxes. It's a question that comes from the state's renewal form, so we're required to put it on there. They've since corrected the issue, so we no longer have any issue with their renewal.
Okay, Mr. Fletcher and
Jim, as I'm looking at it, isn't question 14 highlighted though as kind of another issue that you had?
Let me get back into it. While it's loading up, can you refresh me on which number?
Yeah, sorry, 14, you kind of highlighted it as the capacity being blank for Class B establishments.
Okay. Yeah, so let's see. Yeah, I don't know. Let's see if. Yeah, it looks like, yeah, so we were missing the capacity as well. I forgot about that part. Sorry.
Yeah, I can speak quick on that. It was just two things, honest mistake that I missed on there. So we sent it back, and then Henry, the other member, I believe, emailed Thomas Lund our capacities, which is 78 on the indoor and 35 on our outdoor.
Okay.
That's square with your numbers, Mr. Verbeek?
Yeah, that's good.
Okay. Excuse me, Mr. Kano Espino, you have a question?
No, I was expecting a motion and I was gonna second. Mr. Fletcher usually asks very good questions, but then he motions. So if he's done with his questions, I can motion to approve.
Okay. Mr. Verbeek, did you have any more questions, or Mr. Fletcher?
No, I'm good.
Okay.
Oh, I would move to grant.
Then second.
Okay, and Mr. Kano Espino seconds. So motion and a second to approve item number 5, separated liquor license for Forge Kitchen. I don't see anyone else in the queue, so I will record everyone in the affirmative. Item 5 passes. Thank you, Mr. Hamaker.
Thanks. Sorry about missing those. Have a good night.
Okay, thank you. Takes us then to items 6A and 6B. Do we have anyone in the queue?
I don't have any registrants for 6 or 7, and nobody else is here.
No registrants for 6 or 7. Okay, Assistant City Attorney Zilvey.
Can I go back to the Farm Tavern for a second? Just for some information.
Sure.
Because I called the liquor beer agent and he said Becky Calvert is the one who should answer the questions. Apparently the owner of the business died last year and the business is still in the estate. And I think Becky Calvert is the daughter. So I don't know if Jim wants to try and give her a call. The liquor beer agent was told the owners were going to handle it tonight, and that would be one of the Calverts. So I don't know if Jim wants to try and give them a call.
Yeah, I can try to give him a call. Yeah, Becky was who I was communicating with, and she mentioned that she did not want to have Jerry speak tonight, and I did tell her we still needed her. But she did not reply to the email I told her that we still needed her, so I wasn't quite sure what is going on.
Okay.
Okay, well, thank you, Attorney Zilvey, for that.
So items 6A and 6B are the liquor license and entertainment license for Howard Johnson Plaza. I sent a memo to the ALRC members late this afternoon regarding the liquor license, and what the situation is that the liquor license is void and therefore there is no license to renew. And if there is no liquor license, they don't need an entertainment license either, because the entertainment license is triggered by the liquor license.
Okay. Mr. Donnelly?
Well, if there's no license to renew, I think the only reasonable action to take would be I move to place this item on file without prejudice.
Mr. Kano Espina seconds that. Further discussion. Mr. Fletcher.
Just a couple of questions for Attorney Zilovey. So you had contacted Mr. Gigstad back on October 22nd of last year, and he said that he would kind of follow up to try and rectify the issues. To your knowledge, nothing has he even followed up with you since that period of time? What would it be, about 6-8 months ago, near enough now?
No, and I contacted him again, actually in person, sometime after that date, because we were trying to get some cooperation from him in terms of abiding by the payment plan that he established for paying the room tax. And again, at that time, I reminded him about the fact that the LLC was not registered with the state, and that made his license void. And he again said he would take care of it.
And were you expecting him or or any other representative of the establishment to be here this evening, or not really? You hadn't received any indication either way?
No.
And then I think my last question, because I saw Alder Foster is on our list, and I think I saw some of the email correspondence from him today. I'm just wondering if the Alder of the district has any comments. Or is it say Alder Foster in general, not the Alder of the district? I apologize.
Alder Foster.
Or maybe that would have been for item 7, Mr. Chair. Actually looking back at it, I apologize. Thank you. Okay. Yeah, thanks. As I was looking at it, then I think that's my questions over with. Thank you.
Okay. Further discussion on 6A or 6B? And do we have a motion on this, Mr. Fletcher or Mr. Verbeek? We do. Could you refresh? I wasn't writing it down. I'm sorry. Who made it and seconded, and what was it? Mr. Donnelly? Okay. And I can't hear you, Mr. Verbeek.
I just have the phone with the member of the LLC from the Farm Tavern. She should be calling in shortly.
Okay. The motion for 6A and 6B was to table.
Who is the mover and seconder?
It was a motion to place on file without prejudice. I believe Mr. Kano Espina seconded it.
Okay, great. Sorry about that.
Wait, who made the motion?
I did.
Mr. Donnelly and Mr. Kano Espina seconded. Any further discussion on 6A or 6B? Seeing none, I will record you all as affirmative, and motion to place on file passes. So that takes us then to 7A through D, assistant. Well, let's see, do we have anyone registered? I think you indicated we didn't, Mr. Verbeek.
We do not.
We do not, okay. Assistant City Attorney Zilovey.
I also sent a memo relative to Vision's adult entertainment tavern license. And I don't know if the committee had an opportunity to read the memo, but the gist of it is that it was discovered that they did not pay for their adult entertainment tavern license last year. and therefore the license was never issued. So they operated without that license from July 1st through December 31st of last year. And my opinion is that because they never paid for the license and the license was never issued, there is no license to renew. I outlined some other factors in the memo. I don't know if anybody has any questions on that issue.
Mr. Donnelly and Mr. Fletcher do, and let's take them in that order. Mr. Donnelly?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So specifically, that relates to item 7C. Is that correct, Assistant City Attorney Zolby?
That is correct.
Okay. Well, then I believe it's the same thing as with item 6A, where the only reasonable action for us to take is I move to place item 7C on file without prejudice.
And I'm not sure whether Attorney Brist has an opinion that he wants to offer on that issue, since he's your advisor.
I just want to make sure I understand the situation. I read your memo. They were never issued a license last year. Is that correct?
For the adult entertainment tavern.
Correct, for the adult entertainment license. So they did not have a license in place last year. And they still don't have a license in place at this time.
Correct.
Correct?
That's correct.
Okay, then I would agree. There's no license to renew.
Okay. Mr. Fletcher, did you have a...
I seconded Mr. Donnelly's motion. I think that's the appropriate course of action.
So motion and a second to place on file without prejudice. This is for just item 7C.
Correct.
And Alder Skidmore, did you want to speak to that?
I just have a question for clarification. Just specifically, Jennifer, this means that they were granted the license, but they didn't execute it or follow through on it?
That is correct.
Okay, thank you. That was my only question.
Okay, a motion and a second to place item 7C on file without prejudice. I have no one else in the queue. I'll record everyone as affirmative unless someone raises their hand, and no one has. So, okay, that's 7C. So, Assistant City Attorney Zolby.
And then in terms of 7A, the liquor license, the North Police District wanted to make sure that the conditions that were agreed to in the stipulation last fall are carried over onto the license again. And I think Alder Foster had some comments on that as well.
Alder Foster.
Thank you. Yeah, I was just interested in asking for consideration to also add a condition that given that the licensed premises was altered without permission and the ALRC declined to authorize the change in licensed premises, that there is work that's needed to return the licensed premises to what is approved, to consider adding a condition that work be completed before they're able to reopen. So in other words, assuring that the licensed premises as indicated on the license matches what the actual location.
Okay, thank you, Alder Foster. Other comments comments or questions on 7A? Alder Carter. And then Mr. Grady. Alder Carter.
Yes, I need some clarification on that. Alder Foster, can you go into a little bit more detail on what you're asking?
Sure. This is in regards to the private booths that were constructed without the building permits, and probably more importantly, without LRC approval. And so at
okay.
the vote was to not approve that change, and so the condition would be to make sure that they remove those booths so that their actual licensed premises matches what they're allowed to have.
Thank you, Alder Foster.
And I'll chime in that at this point, it's just to the private booths, since the issue of the basement renovations is still up for your consideration.
Is that something we can take together, the booths and the basement renovation, or is that two separate items? Okay, I got my answer. Thank you.
Mr. Grady?
Yeah, that was my question about the basement.
Okay.
So.
All right, so we will take that as a separate item. Right now, we're dealing with just 7A and the liquor license. Mr. Donnelly.
I'd just like to remind my fellow committee members that we don't need to put too much effort into worrying about what would be done with booths and things, given that there won't be any adult entertainment to happen in the booths. I still think that Alder Foster's idea is a good one, but I don't think we need to worry about it being too careful with it.
Okay, Mr. Kano Espina, and then Assistant City Attorney Brist.
Thank you. I do think that we need to put it in the license that the license permits need to be the way that were approved, because I am worried that this business has been operated without a valid license for adult entertainment for a year, which is a pattern of disregarding different laws that they may want to continue to try to disregard the law. So I think it will be important to say that they cannot operate as a regular bar with the regular license that we may grant today, if they do not take those booths.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Kano Espina. Assistant City Attorney Brist, and then Alder Skidmore.
Thank you. I would caution members of the committee to take the conditions seriously and to assume that we are going to end up in litigation potentially. And so you want to make sure you make your position as clear as possible.
Thank you. Okay, Alder Skidmore.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate staff's comment, last comment on this. I expect that they'll get lawyered up real quick. And I really appreciate the last two commissioners who echoed that comment. I support it. We need to sweat the details. I have a question which may or may not be hypothetical. Visions has not been able to operate legally for adult entertainment in the last year. How long would that condition have to last before there's no longer a provision where this property is grandfathered in to allow it? Or is that not something that's on the table? That would be a question for an attorney. And I see two of them here.
Well, I would say off the top of my head, I don't know. That's something I would have to research.
Consider that a question. Thank you. Or a request.
Mr. Donnelly, and then Alder Foster.
Alder Foster can go first.
Alder Foster?
Thanks. Yeah, I was just going to mention, I think, when I spoke to my concerns with the request for the alterations and the change in licensed premises, my concerns around those booths were pretty broad, and I would say I still have them even without an adult entertainment component happening there. So my objections were really around creating these spaces that were not easily monitored by staff. So I think my request to get the licensed premises in order would still be there regardless of whether there is adult entertainment happening or not.
Okay, thank you, Alder Foster. Mr. Donnelly?
I would like to make a motion.
All right, I don't have anyone else in the queue.
I move to grant item 7A with all conditions currently on the license and with an additional condition 11, all private booths must be removed from the licensed premises.
You want to put a date certain on there, and this would apply after July 1st?
How about, actually, I have a better way to put it. There may be no private booths on the licensed premises. And yes, that would be as of July 1st when this license would take effect.
Second.
And to anticipate Alder Verveer, do you want shall be no booths? Will, shall, what's the right way to do it?
Your preference, Vice Chairperson Donnelly.
Let's say
Must and shall are my favorites.
There shall be no private booths on licensed premises.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Alder Carter, did you want to speak to that?
I was seconding it. That's okay.
Oh, okay. Mr. Fletcher.
Just for the record, Jim, did you hear from the applicant at all about this evening's about attending this evening's meeting?
At no point have I heard from the applicant for this establishment.
And I'm assuming Attorney Zillavi did not hear from the applicant either.
I did not.
Very good. Thank you.
And maybe we want Mr. Verbeek to try and call him before we conclude with these items, since we called the Farm Tavern.
I think that'd be consistent.
Do you have a phone number for him?
I believe we do. I'll look it up real quick.
Okay, Mr. Grady.
I have two questions. One, are they still doing business?
I don't know. I know, I think it was when the Safer at Home order first went into effect. There were some complaints that they were open because of cars in the parking lot, but that was investigated and determined that they were not open, and Mr. Brown confirmed that they were not open.
And
I don't know if since the last order if they opened, but
you've heard nothing from them about surrendering their license or going out of business or anything like that, huh?
no.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, motion and a second for approval of 7A with the conditions Mr. Donnelly identified. I don't have anyone else in the queue, so I will record everyone in the affirmative, and that motion passes. Takes us to item 7B. Assistant City Attorney Zoe.
I don't really have any comments on that.
Okay. Mr. Donnelly.
Seeing no one else, their hand up, I move to grant item 7B, pulling forward the same conditions on the current license and adding the same condition that we added to the liquor license.
Okay, do we have a second? Mr. Kano Spina and Alder Revere.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I had sought recognition for exactly the suggestion that Vice Chair Donnelly already did, and that is to include all of the alcohol license conditions on the entertainment license, because I see that that is not presently the case. So I thank him for doing that. I certainly support the motion. If I could also say to Mr. Verbic, could you please, Jim, as soon as possible, include Attorney Zillaby's memos relating to the Howard Johnson's licenses as well as Visions in Legistar. You see they're not in Legistar yet.
Oh, they're not in there yet? Okay, I can do it, yeah.
And that would be critical to educate my city council colleagues for Tuesday's discussion, as well as members of the community that might be interested.
Okay.
So thank you for trying to upload those yet tonight.
Yep, I'll just mute my mic.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. That's all.
Okay, Mr. Kano Spina. Did you have a question? Trying to unmute you here. Okay, there you go.
Yeah, my question is a procedural question. So I heard that we were gonna try to contact this applicant before we make the final vote on this. This will be the final vote on this one. And so I don't know if we need to do like place on the table for 10 minutes. Do we need to like adjourn for like a couple of minutes to give staff the opportunity to do that? So do we do due diligence?
I can address that. If Mr. Verbic is able to get a hold of them, then we can have a motion to reconsider. We can open the item back up again, further discussion, further debate, new vote.
Beautiful. That's perfect with me. Thank you.
I just tried calling the numbers on there. The one for the agent, Mr. David Brown, said the caller was not available. There was no opportunity to leave a voicemail. And the one other number that we had on file did not, it was disconnected.
Okay, I don't have anyone else. Mr. Donnelly, did you have anything else you wanted to say? Okay, so we have a motion and a second to approve 7B with the conditions Mr. Donnelly identified. I have no one else in the queue, so I'll record everyone in the affirmative on that. Which then takes us to item 7D. Assistant City Attorney Zovey.
Sorry, where am I? 7D, is that what we're on?
Yes.
And that the basement portion of the change in premise got missed when the committee turned down the request to change the premise for the booths. So this was separated out and sent back because there at the meeting, I believe it was in February, there was discussion among committee members about the two different changes in premise, and some of the committee members said they didn't have a problem with the basement portion since it was actually improving the premises. So that's why that is back on and before you.
Mr. Donnelly, Mr. Kano Spina, and then Alder Foster.
The license holder, given that the license holder is not present and we're uncertain as to the future of the establishment, I move to refer this item to the next regularly scheduled meeting of the ALRC.
Second.
Mr. Kano Espina seconds. Alder Foster?
Thank you. Yeah, just in case this does come back and it's the only thing on the agenda for District 15, I'll just share again here. I think I shared in an earlier email, but I have no concerns with this request if ALRC found it to be an acceptable change. So I'll just mention that again tonight so that if it does come up, you've got that perspective. Thank you.
Okay. I have no one else in the queue with regard to item 7D. Record everyone in the affirmative, and that motion passes as well. So we then have a couple of items on the table. I believe 4 is still on the table, Mr. Rubik.
That's correct. And we do have somebody who's called in. I believe it is somebody with Farm Tavern.
Mr. Chair, I move to take up item 4 off the table.
Motion and a second to take up item 4. Mr. Kano Espina seconds that. Mr. Fletcher, did you want to speak to that motion? Okay. So I'll record all of you in favor. So item 4 is back on the table. Mr. Donnelly?
Nope, that's all I wanted to do.
Oh, okay, all right.
Accomplished.
That's all you wanted to accomplish. All right, great. So item 4, I have no one in the queue.
Becky, is that you who's called in? Hello? Is this Becky or Justin?
They are unmuted on our end.
Are you talking to me?
Yes. What is your name?
This is Mike Haas.
Oh, hello. Sorry. I expected somebody to call in. I thought it was the person that called in before. And
yeah, and I mean, I'm not a clerk, nor do I pretend to be one, but really people should be registering online before we recognize them or allow them to speak at a meeting.
Mm-hmm.
Because we don't know who these people are. So thanks.
Yeah, I know that Justin Egger had registered, and I wasn't sure if he had called in on a different number or what. I can try calling the Becky back, who I spoke with. I did see she had called in for the number that I had with her. I don't know if it was her or Justin who had registered, but I can try giving her a call back and see what the deal is.
Okay. So we've got 4 back on the table and still no one to talk to, correct, Mr. Verbeek?
That's correct.
What's the committee's pleasure? Mr. Fletcher?
Could Attorney Brist remind the committee or opine for the committee what are our options here, given the timing of everything as we discussed last night with the applicant not being here to explain the I wouldn't say insubstantial deficiencies that are probably present in this application.
And Mr. Donnelly, excuse me, just a minute, Assistant Attorney Brist. Mr. Donnelly, I need to step off for just a minute, so can you take over right now? Thank you very much.
This is an inadequate application form, and I need my memory refreshed about what was inadequate about this particular application.
Jim,
is he available? Because he might be on the phone.
It definitely looks like he's on the phone.
Yes.
He's muted himself on his end.
Yeah.
So, Mr. Donnelly, you are co-host now, so you can mute and unmute people.
Okay, she's gonna call back.
Okay.
Can we refresh our memory about what the inadequacies were in this application?
This one, the issues were the premise referred to an outdoor patio area.
The smoking area.
Hello?
No? I can hear you.
Okay. So the issues were there's an outdoor patio area referenced on the renewal form, but I don't believe there is one on the license. There's also an issue with the capacity was listed as 160 on the renewal form, but to our knowledge, their capacity is 99. And their corporate members list Dave Renicky, who is not part of the establishment. Okay, it looks like Becky's here now. And then my other issue was the entertainment piece of that they don't have an entertainment license, but they had indicated they do offer or allow use of DJs.
Hello?
Hi, Becky.
Hi.
So the reason that we did talk about an email, the reason that your renewal was separated and is because the outdoor patio that's referenced on there on your renewal form is not part of your actual license. The capacity number that was listed was 160. You did indicate that was what was pulled off the fire sign that said 160. However, your application for your alcohol license is only at 99. And then your list of corporate officers that we have on record did not include Dave Renicky. And you indicated that you were unaware of the urgency in getting the change of officer form. And then as we also had spoke about the entertainment and the renewal form, the box was checked that you offer or allow use of DJ, but there is no entertainment license for that establishment. That one was applied for 2 years ago, but the application was considered incomplete because there was no security plan and one was not provided.
Okay. Like I explained, I took the capacity number off the thing. I guess the smoking area I thought was outdoors. The change of officers, when it was applied for last year, my dad was alive. He died July 27th, and this got thrown in my lap. And I know we were late paying, and I know we ran down there to pay, and I thought at the same time, Dave Renicky, who is the personal representative and trustee of my dad's estate, I know I signed forms to put him and I on there. I know I gave a driver's license. So I guess I assumed that had happened. You know, I signed so many papers, you know, maybe it was for something else as part of the farm tavern. I don't know. I will get that to you as soon as I recuperated enough to get there.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Calvert. Members of the Alcohol License Review Committee will have questions for you now. I request that you answer the questions and not dissemble at length. So first up is Mr. Kano Espina and then Assistant City Attorney Brest.
Okay.
Mr. Kano Espina.
So first, I'm sorry for your loss, and concern also for your well-being. So thank you for being here with us today. My first question is the capacity. What is your understanding when you were running the business, how many people you could have in the business?
This is my dad's business. I had nothing to do with it until he died.
I see.
July 27th. So, but things settled down a little bit. It's September. I've never ran a bar.
I see.
I mean, I haven't been to the farm tavern. Well, now I have, but prior to that, in years. I'm flying by the seat of my pants here.
So do you have any numbers in your mind of what is the capacity, or you just thought the capacity was 160?
We looked at the fire sign where it says capacity and wrote that down. Okay. Because I looked at the liquor license and then I tried to go through all my dad's files to see if I could find like past applications that I could copy from. But oh my God, there was so much. I never did find a copy.
Okay.
Of prior ones to use.
Okay. So the number that you saw was the fire one. You didn't see any number on the liquor license, so you just used the fire number.
That's correct. I looked at the liquor license that's hung up there.
Okay. The second question that I had was about the DJ. Again, sorry about your dad's passing. And so as you heard, the city clerk said that your establishment actually does not have a entertainment license. Do you currently, when it was open, after you took possession of the business, did you had, to your knowledge, DJs or entertainment?
My knowledge of that is when I did the daily receipts every couple of weekends, there'd be a receipt that said that he paid the DJ $200.
Okay.
I had no idea that I needed a entertainment license. I guess I assumed that if they did, that everybody was current on it.
Got it. So am I to understand that you basically have somebody else managing the day-to-day activity of the restaurant and they just kind of give you receipts and stuff like that?
Yes, we have a manager. He's been there 4 years. He has been very, how do I want to say it, uncooperative since my dad died and I've taken over. And then here in the shutdown, we've had time to look things over and stuff. And we found a lot of discrepancies, like in ordering and, money and stuff. And so I've tried to distance myself from him.
Okay. Well, thank you for answering thank you for answering my questions.
Okay. All right.
Assistant City Attorney Brest. Oh, shoot. Fernando, don't do that. Sorry. Steve, hang on a second. Okay, go ahead, Assistant City Attorney Brest.
Thank you. Ms. Calvert, thank you for participating in the meeting tonight on such short notice. We are on a short time frame right now. We are trying to get this done in order to get to a meeting of the Madison City Council so the license can be approved. And what happened was these discrepancies were caught by Jim Verbick, our clerk. And what I'm wondering is, in the interest of moving this ahead and getting the license renewed, can you agree that we go with a capacity of 99, for example, for the first point?
I would just take what was off last year's.
Yes, that's fine.
Nothing has changed, as far as, the capacity and all that,
And regarding the description of the premise, did you know what you referred to when you made a description of the premise? Because it appears there was an outside patio area included.
My thought is, it says, is there outdoor seating or something? And there's a little area for smoking, and they have 2 plastic chairs and a coffee can. And I just was like, oh, well, yeah, they sit out there. That was my only thought.
Would you agree that the licensed premise only includes the premises described on the last license?
Yes.
And that we're not going to have alcohol on that area where people go out to smoke?
Oh, no.
Okay, so we don't need to include that in the premise because you weren't serving alcohol there. It sounds like, according to your voice.
Right. There's no serving out there. It's just people going out to smoke.
Okay, and then thirdly, we are not granting you or denying you an entertainment license tonight, but you made an admission in your application that you had music in violation of ordinances, but and that could be taken into consideration for license renewal, I suppose, although it would be kind of I'm not sure how likely it would be that we'd gain revocation just for that particular fact. You understand that you're not licensed at the current time for music?
Well, now I do.
Now you do, yes.
Now I do, and we will not have any more.
Okay, given that
until I go through the proper channels.
All right, no, and I would assume that you're currently shut down because of, or that you might have just reopened.
Well, we wanted to wait a little bit. It was a little leery, so we're going to wait.
Okay.
Before we reopen.
So when you reopen, so when you reopen, you understand that the law prohibits you from having live music without a license.
That's correct, and I will make sure that's followed.
I would ask our clerk, have I asked the questions that would allow you to correct the license?
You have.
Okay.
Well, given that, I think that we should revert the license back to its original status, and its original conditions as of last year, and correct this year's application before it goes to the council in line with what I just discussed with the licensee.
Excellent. Thank you, Assistant City Attorney Brist. Mr. Fletcher.
I would, I just have one question before we move on. So, Ms. Calvert, Jerry Ryder is listed as your manager and he's the liquor beer agent, correct?
Yes.
Operationally, that if you're saying that he or someone in his position should have responsibility for the kind of operations of the establishment and be involved day to day, has Mr. Ryder really been doing that? To your knowledge,
participating and being there, and he does the ordering. He bartends, he schedules people. He's pretty much in charge, and he's usually there. He's got his day off, but I went in there now, and he's usually there.
But you mentioned kind of the operational issues and discrepancies that you found, correct?
That is something. There's 6 of us. So, we're in the process of trying to decide to keep Jerry Ryder on, but have more, scrutinize him more, or
sure,
manage him better, or whether it's time to hire someone else. we just haven't gotten that far yet.
Yeah, no, and I appreciate that, Ms. Calvert, especially with everything going on. I just really want to re-stress and re-emphasize the importance of having someone who is responsible for the ongoing oversight and operations of the establishment as your liquor beer agent, because it can help smooth over, I think, some of these the challenges and maybe even with the paperwork, especially in preparation too. Mr. Chair, with that, I would move to grant item 4 with the kind of corrections and clarifications as Attorney Brisk went through with the applicant to revert the license back to its current or this year's state, as it were, correcting the omissions.
Okay, I hear a motion. Is there a second? Mr.
I would like to second. Sorry, I would like to second, but I also have a request of staff. So if I can ask the our police captain if she has any concerns with this establishment. Is there any issues of maybe having overcapacity or anything? Because I was gonna ask if we could add to have them back like in 6 months, just to kind of see how things are going and make sure that the business is running correctly. Again, I understand everything that has happened in your personal life and with COVID. It's just concerning that for 2 years they may have done entertainment without a license. So, is anything from the police department that they can? And I second the motion.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Kino-Espina. Captain Donahue.
I did a quick look of the previous calls for service. Nothing out of the ordinary. There were a couple of noise complaints last summer, but it didn't appear to be habitual or any kind of pattern to it. I also reached out to Captain Hansen, the captain of the South District, and he said that no issues have been brought to his attention. I would also add that just because of what sounds like some unfamiliarity with the bar business, I would agree that maybe having them back sooner rather than later, just to check in, would be a good idea, and also offer that if Ms. Calvert needs any assistance from the police department, not to hesitate to reach out to Captain Hansen.
Thank you. Would that be a friendly for the maker of the motion to say, we request to have them come in 6 months?
Sure.
Thank you.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none. Any opposition to us recording a unanimous support of this motion? Seeing none. Gosh, it feels weird to say it. The ayes have it. Mr. Verbeek, do we have any further business before us?
We do not.
All right. In that case, Mr. Fletcher.
Mr. Chair, I would move adjournment.
Your motion. I see a second from Mr. Grady. All in favor indicate by waving your hands.
Aye.
Let's have it. Meeting adjourned at 8:04 p.m.
Thank you, everybody. Have a great night.